Hey, Zoomers, welcome back to World Zoom. So happy you could join me again today. Hey, today we're going to talk about why did Vitalys cameraman run and escape from the Philippines after being charged. And I just find the whole process pretty amazing. And I keep seeing comments online about how stupid it was, for him to run for such a small offense and that he's an idiot and why would he do this type of thing and what was he thinking and why was he partnered with Vitalys. And I just wanted to put some perspective on it from my experience and from my thoughts, what would make someone that's a citizen of a country flee that country for reasons that you may not think it was necessary to do so. So to do that quickly, we've got to review a little bit about Vitalys and his potential charges and the situation that he's got himself in. Basically, he was going around doing YouTube videos where he was, bad-mouthing Filipinos, tricking them, scaring them, taking things from them, taking a motorcycle from a security guard and riding it down the street, taking the hat off the head of a security guard, belittling an elderly Filipino woman, making her cry, and then posting that. All these things, in and of themselves wouldn't amount to much. It was obviously, at least in my opinion, not a real attempt at a theft of a motorcycle or a fan. It was him just being an idiot, and he is an idiot, doing these videos for views. And he's done these all over the world. It wasn't just the Philippines. However, in the Philippines, when people make complaints or when you can be arrested, there's really no due process to speak of. And so he's got himself in trouble. He continued to dig his hole by being in a press conference, because what they love to do is put your name on this process and you've got to stand there with it while they're all lined up getting action photos with you standing beside you, and then they'll rotate and two more will take a picture. They'll have a press conference. Well, he just wouldn't have it. He was making faces, sticking his tongue out, waving to people out in the crowd. In the meantime, his cameraman, who happens to be a Filipino citizen, was sort of in the wind. He got out of there when he found out Vitalys had been arrested. And when he sees the head of the Justice Department on television talking about what a bad guy he is, and then sees the president himself of the Philippines talking about Vitalys and how, could a Philippine citizen partner with this and do this, then he decides he better hightail it. They come out with a statement from a spokesman from the Justice Department saying that the cameraman is looking at, if he was convicted of this, looking at 30 days in jail. So you start to think, well, come on now. If you're going to get 30 days in jail in the worst case scenario, why would you sneak out of the country on a boat potentially and go to Taipei, Taiwan, or Korea, wherever they're saying that he has escaped to? It looks definitely like he's gotten out of the country and he is elsewhere. Past that, I'm not exactly sure, haven't seen any confirmation of where he is. So why in the world would someone from their home country take off when they were looking at a 30-day sentence? And, I'd like you to remember that this is the Philippines, right? So they talk about a 30-day sentence, but the average time for a Filipino in their prison or holding facility to go from charges to seeing a judge can be up to 3 years. 3 years. So they pick him up, they're going to arrest him, they're going to put him in, he's looking at 30 days. He goes to the holding facility, which is the prison, and 3 years later, they pull him out, in whatever shape he's in after that nightmare of 3 years. They bring him to the court. He gets a 30-day sentence. The judge says, sorry, you've already spent over 1,000 days. My apologies. You're free to go. Well, you know what? The hell with that, right? I mean, he saw that. He knew that could potentially happen. He also knows that the president himself of the country wants to show him, a hard time for partnering with a Russian vlogger and embarrassing the country and embarrassing people. So that guy, decided, heck, you know what? I can't do that, or I don't want to be looking at a 30-day sentence, but spend years in the prison. And 100% he would have spent years in the prison waiting for that, especially when there is no due process. There's no one to say, hey, let's get him arraigned and get him, legal counsel and get him in front of the judge, a week after he's in jail. Or, in the U.S., we get a day, right? We're usually seeing someone in a day, and certainly a few days at the longest. We have heard situations with terrorism, some of the other things going on in the U.S. where you're not given counsel and the opportunity to have a judicial review, but that's, somewhat few and far between. And it's certainly not someone that's a cameraman for someone that didn't do any felonies anyway. The charges of unjust vexation and things like that, shouldn't even get you in the jail, in my opinion, let alone looking at 10 or 14 years in jail. So the cameraman films all this. All hell rains down on him in the Philippines. You've got the head of the justice, the president of the country, and a Justice Department spokesman saying he could get as much to 30 days in jail. And he's like, yeah, I'm catching the first boat, out of here. I'm not going to spend 3 years plus in a maximum security prison to just end up and pay all those fines and have to support myself in the prison to get a 30-day sentence at the end. So a scary situation for him. I just wanted to put, pretty much uniformly now he's getting pounded for being a bad guy and making a terrible decision. And why would he do such a thing? I'd like you to put yourself in that situation and know your country, right? Because you live there. You know what's coming down. They say 30 days, but it actually could be 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. We've seen stories on governmental programs and people that go into the prison where they find people 6, 7, 8 years in those prisons that have yet to have their case heard by a judge. So if you've angered the president, the best you can hope for is being in there till the next election, and maybe things, loosen up and they change the judicial review process. But the previous president's in trouble himself, being held in The Hague on charges of crimes against humanity and mass murder. And so now we have the new president that has, some issues as well. And, I don't have a great deal of question of why he would run. I'm not saying that was the right way to do it, but I certainly understand why he did pack up and leave the country, because who knows what's going to have to the guy that he was working with, Vitalys. So I would love to know what you guys think about this. A real interesting case. And I think we'll be able to see sort of the judicial process of the Philippines come to play over the next year or two. So anyway, from World Zoom, I appreciate you guys. See you next time. Bye.